Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess. If you've never been here before, hello. I like to read lots of books, and in today's video, I want to talk about some romance books. Specifically books that I would recommend for the upcoming romance holiday. You know, we love Valentine's Day. I have picked quite a few different reads. These are going to be from all around the spectrum of romance books, different genres, different reading smuttiness, maybe no smut involved at all. I thought I'd hit a recommendation for everybody, so buckle in because that's what we're going to do in today's video. And I would say no spoilers in this. I'm not going to really spoil anything. I'm just going to give you like basic plot outline, the main characters, maybe some characteristics of those people. And yeah, I think these are 10 different recommendations if I counted correctly. If not, I'll have to try to find another one because I'm pretty sure I have at least 9, but I'm almost positive it's 10. I don't do enough like research and planning and plotting for these videos as one would think. You know, obviously my status as a full-time, I'm not even gonna joke because I barely make videos at all. I've only been making them for like a month and a half, and it's hard, guys. It's hard out here. I actually filmed a different video that I was going to put up, but I couldn't get it to sync up with my screen recording very well, so we're doing this instead. It's in a similar vein though, all revolving around Valentine's Day. Without further ado, let's get started with some of these recommendations that I have. Some of these books are going to be what the world would call a book talk book, like a book that is popular on the internet. It's in that like For You page section in Books A Million that I see all the time. And one of those books is going to be Praise by Sara Kate. We're starting off with a very smutty book. This book follows a girl named Charlie or Charlotte and a man named Emerson. He is her ex-boyfriend's dad. There's a major age gap between the two, and she learns that she has a praise kink, and that's what this entire book is about. Emerson is opening a Salacious Players Club, which is like a sex club, and at this club there's a lot of different cast of characters, and each book in this series follows a different person who has something to do with the Salacious Players Club itself. And this book specifically follows one of the main owners, Emerson, and Emerson is figuring himself out still. He knows what he likes, but he has not found anyone that he wants to settle down with. Charlie, on the other hand, has just broken up with her with Emerson's son, and there's like a big age gap between the two of them, like I think like 20 years or something, but you know, love finds a way. So Emerson and Charlie hit it off at this first meeting that they have, and they're kind of like, oh, there's some chemistry here. And like I said, it's very smutty. It's the book series that I use when I'm going deeply into a reading slump. I just jump straight into another Salacious Players Club book. So it has pulled me out 3 times now. Praise, Eyes on Me, and Give Me More. All 3 of them I've liked. I have one more in the series that I own, and then I think there's still like 3 more books after that that I don't have, but I can borrow from other people. So I recommend Praise by Sara Kate. Okay, following the vein of a book talk popular book, I'm going to recommend the first book in the Kings of Sin series by Anna Huang. That would be King of Wrath. And what do y'all know about King of Wrath by Anna Huang? This book series follows billionaires. I think that all of the guys that are main characters are billionaires in some way, shape, or form, different industries. The main character that we start with for King of Wrath, he actually never wanted to get married. He never really wanted to settle down or anything like that. He did not have the time. He's a workaholic, he is a boss, and he has things to do. However, he is cornered into a marriage of convenience, forced arranged marriage basically, with Vivian, and they are very reluctant, sort of enemies, kind of like rivals. They like are reluctantly together, and they kind of learn that maybe they have chemistry. Maybe something can happen between the two of them. And there's drama that ensues. If you've read any of Anna Huang's books, you know that there's always some like random, like life-threatening like situation that happens. And in this book, the main character Vivian has trauma surrounding her mother and her family life. So that book was really, really interesting. I recommend it to a lot of people just because it's like so fast-paced and it's just kind of crazy. I mean, any billionaire romance is going to be kind of crazy, but specifically this book series, the Kings of Sin series, I just eat it up. It's very similar to her Twisted series, her Twisted Love series that she has. I read that first, and I definitely like Kings of Sin better, but King of Wrath amazing. I recommend it to a lot of people. My sister-in-law has my copy borrowed right now, and I hope that she loves it. And if she doesn't love it, I feel bad because I've put a lot of people on to King of Wrath. Okay, we're gonna switch it up with a bit of a lesser known romance book. This is going to be Trouble by Lex Croucher. This is a closed door romance, so there's no actual spice in the book. It's kind of like Fade to Black. That's what happens in it. And the main plot of it is sort of romance. I mean, it is a romantic book, but it is really about this ensemble cast of characters that our main character begins to know throughout a job being like a governess or tutor for these two children in this like London estate. This is like set back in what I would assume would be close to Bridgerton era, like Regency era. And this whole thing starts when the main character, Emily, fills in for her sister for this governess position, but they don't realize that Emily is not her sister. She just goes in her place and everyone assumes that she is her sister. And her sister loves kids and has always wanted to be like working with children. Emily, on the other hand, doesn't love kids. She does not have a very maternal instinct, and she goes into this job really just hoping to get money for her family. And at this estate, she finds that the kids are very fun, actually, to be around. They're kind of hard-headed, but they do have a lot of fun and redeeming qualities. The actual people who work in the house, like the other employees, are so interesting. They have such complex like backstories for being these side characters. And then our male love interest is actually the father, the guy. I think that he's a widower, I'm pretty sure. And so it kind of talks about them flirting around. It's a very slow burn. There's an age gap between them, and it's really funny. And I really liked the book as it's like as a whole. It made me feel really warm and fuzzy inside. Not exactly what I would describe as like a super romantic book, but it's a really good feel good low stakes comedy book that has romance in it and a really nice cast of characters. So if you're looking for something that's less focused on a relationship, which is really funny because I'm recommending this book for Valentine's Day, if you're looking for a book that has a lot of LGBTQ plus representation and also just a really fun storyline, I would recommend this book by Lex Croucher. I would also recommend their other book, Not for the Faint of Heart. Both of the books that they've written have been a really fun ensemble cast where the romance is embedded into the story, but there are other things happening at the same time. It's really fun. All of their books are really fun. A more recent book that has come out is Flirting with Disaster by Naina Kumar. I actually talked about this in my January wrap-up reading video that I posted because I just read this 2 weeks ago and I absolutely loved it. It is basically like a retelling of Sweet Home Alabama, if you've seen that movie. I have not, but I've read reviews where people say that it is very similar, and if you like that movie, then you would probably love this book. So our main characters are actually husband and wife already, but they've been separated for like 6 years. And what happened was that they were dating and they had a crazy night in Vegas and they went out and got married, and their relationship lasted for about another year after that, and then they parted ways and they haven't seen each other in 7 years. And she's ready to move on with her life. She's ready to marry the guy that she's with, and so she flies back to where the guy lives, her husband, and she tries to convince him to get a divorce. And while that doesn't sound romantic, this is what happens. There's forced proximity in where she flies back to Texas to talk to him, and there's a hurricane. So she gets stuck in the house with him and they have to bear the storm together. And as we know, romance will, guess what, ensue. It will happen because this is a romance book. However, I never knew exactly where it was going to turn because she does already have a love interest that she is with. So it was kind of navigating between these really complex feelings that she was having, like sort of love triangle, even though the guy who she was with, that she was dating at the current time, wasn't really involved in the story that much because we're focused on these two characters who are stuck together during this hurricane. So I really did enjoy the book, and it was really wholesome. Very wholesome. The characters were really fun and realized they had jobs and they cared about their jobs and they cared about other things besides just being in a romantic relationship. And I think that's really important. And I feel like it has a really nice way of bringing in real life into relationships. So that's Flirting with Disaster by Naina Kumar. The next recommendation that I have is a book that is totally and completely so much fun. It is Morbidly Yours by Ivy Fairbanks. This book was a crazy ride. It was so much fun to read. I got it as an ARC last year, and it is about a girl who moves from America to Scotland following a very traumatic event in her life, or maybe she moves to Ireland. I think she's actually in Ireland, and she moves and she buys a house that is next to a mortuary, and the mortician who is practicing there is a guy who is trying to save his family mortuary business, and he has to marry before he's 30 for that to happen. And you know, he's a shy guy, he's kind of brooding, and he's tall and awkward and doesn't really talk to a lot of people, but our main character Lark finds a way to connect the bridge to Callum, and they have a really nice like friendship to lovers story. It was so fun, and it did have some spice in it. I can't remember exactly how much, but it was not closed door. Like, there were spicy scenes in it, and it was so funny just like to hear the two of them go back and forth and the fun things that they get to do because they were friends. So they are doing like friend stuff together all around Ireland. It was just so much fun. And I feel like the book is a really nice representation for more realistic relationships. I mean, obviously he has to like get married before he's 30 and all this other stuff. But if you take that part out and you just look at them like going on these dates that they didn't even realize were dates at the time because they were just being friendly, I really enjoyed reading it, and I thought that it was such a cute read. I also thought that it was so funny. Like, it is so funny that even the name Morbidly Yours is just an interesting name for a book. The main character was really bright and vibrant, and Callum himself, he was really swoon worthy. That's really all I can say. I really enjoyed it, and I did not expect to like it as much as I did going into it. That is Morbidly Yours by Ivy Fairbanks. Okay, I'm losing track of how many books I've recommended so far, but we're going to go in with a bit of a different type of romance book. That is going to be Januaries by Olivie Blake. This is actually a short story collection that is about love, magic, and betrayal. Not every story is going to be a straight up romance, but there's so much humor and magic like weaved into every single story that she has in this story of in this short story collection. And I found that at the end of it, I felt so happy. Like, just reading it, she has a really beautiful way with words and a really beautiful way of explaining things. So it's hard to encapsulate what this short story collection is really going to tell you because it's a bunch of stories that are not related to each other, and they all live in like different universes. And some of them have magic, some of them have a lot of betrayal. There's love, there's yearning, there's wanting, there's like heartbreak. It's just such a cool book, a really interesting premise for a short story collection, because while they don't live in the same universe, all of them have very similar themes, and some of them may leave you feeling a little sad, but that's okay because some of the other ones will leave you feeling so great. Especially, I loved the first short story in the series, and I think it's a really powerful collection of stories if you want to read something that is a bit different in terms of romance. But there's obviously some love, but it's like not a romance that is written like a rom-com. These are going to be like more like literary romances, though they do have some fantastical elements in them. Januaries by Olivie Blake. Sticking with the more literary form of a romance book, I also want to recommend Psyche and Eros by mcnamara. This is a book, I read it because I was really deep into my Greek mythology retelling era. Last year, I was looking for Psyche works and retellings, and I found this book by mcnamara, and it was so beautifully written. It is similar to like if you've read Song of Achilles or Babylonia. It's a more literary, like I said, and lyrical retelling. So it's not going to read like a fluffy rom-com. It's not going to read like Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. It's going to be more harrowing and the stakes are going to feel a lot higher. You're going to get a lot more emotions out of the characters. But this book follows Psyche and Eros and their forbidden love that they have. And there's a lot of obstacles that stand in their way. There are games that are played against them. There are people who do not want them to be together. Really big challenges that they face that are like literally like life or death challenges. But there's so much yearning in this book, like down bad, crawling on the floor, yearning that happens between these two characters. And the ending was just so complete and so well wrapped up that I felt like, wow, that was a great book. And there are some books that I finished and I'm like, oh, you know, that was fun, that was cute, and I really enjoyed it, and it made me laugh, blah, blah, blah. This one made me feel, I don't even know how to describe it. It's similar to how I felt after I read Babylonia last month by Costanza Casati. I just feel like I was happy crying, I was sad crying, I was mad crying. I cried a lot reading this book. I don't really understand what kind of headspace I was in when I was reading it, but there was a lot of tears that were happening. Like I said, there's not much spice. I think there's just like a very teensy bit, but lots and lots of yearning and longing to be together. So Psyche and Eros by mcnamara. We're going to go back into the book talk space. I have Funny Story by Emily Henry. I read this when it came out because there's a lot of hype that surrounds Emily Henry. She wrote, you know, A Happy Place. She wrote People We Meet on Vacation, Book Lovers. There's another one too, Beach Read. And I've never read anything by Emily Henry prior to reading Funny Story. I picked this one up because people were telling me that the main male character, Miles, is very similar to Nick from New Girl. And I love New Girl, and Nick Miller is so funny. So I was like, you know what? I have to go for it. The main character in this book is a librarian who was left by her soon-to-be husband, and she ends up roommating because her soon-to-be husband like kicks her out of the house. Basically, she has nowhere to go, and she ends up living with the person who her ex-fiance left her for's ex-boyfriend, if that makes sense. She was engaged to someone. The person she was engaged to called it off and got with another person, and that other person was also in a relationship. So she's moving in with the other person's ex-boyfriend now. And so they're both navigating this really traumatic and trying time where they've both basically been cheated on and left. Well, not basically, they both have been cheated on and left by their partners. And they have a forced proximity, obviously, because they're living in the same place, but really a friendship that turns into romance. And Miles is not very similar to Nick from New Girl. I mean, he's like silly goofy, but he has a lot more social awareness and is really well-rounded and communicates with other people a lot better than Nick from New Girl does. Wasn't quite feeling that vibe exactly, but I thought it was a really fun book. I liked the way that at the beginning of every chapter, it said like so-and-so days until the big event. So we were counting down. So I always had something to look forward to, and I knew exactly how fast the pacing was moving in books, because sometimes I lose track. Like, has it been a week? Has it been 3 days? Has it been 1 hour? Like, I never know for sure. And I liked that this book had a specific countdown telling us and letting me know how much time had passed. And I could always go back and reference and see from chapter to chapter what was like the actual time period that was passing, which is something that I get lost in a lot in books. I gave this book 5 stars. I really enjoyed it, and it made me want to read other Emily Henry books, which is funny because I have like 3 other Emily Henry books upstairs on my shelf, and I have not picked up any of them. Will I be buying Emily Henry's new book that comes out, like The Great Big Beautiful World or whatever it's called? That can't be what it's called. So whatever her new book is, yeah, I'm gonna buy it. Am I going to read it in front of the other books? Maybe. Who knows? But I definitely love Funny Story by Emily Henry. Okay, we're rounding down. I'm trying to look and see what I even have left. I think I've given you at least 8, so there's 2 more left, and we're going to go with another book talk book. Sensation, actually. The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is a magical realism romance that follows a girl named Clem or Clementine, I'm pretty sure, and she is gifted or willed this apartment that her aunt had that is magical. And every other time or so, the apartment picks. You don't really know for sure the exact magic system of this apartment, but sometimes when Clem walks into the apartment, she goes back in time 7 years. And throughout this book, we're not really in a dual timeline because it's happening to Clem presently, but we're following this relationship that is building both in 7 years ago and in present time between Clem and this guy that she meets 7 years ago during the 7-year slip of the apartment. But realistically, it's happening to her in present time, but we're going backwards 7 years. And so it's really interesting to explain. I liked the premise of this book. It was fun and easy to follow. It made me cry. Like, I remember being so sad when I was reading this book. I mean, there's a great resolution at the end, but I remember feeling like so heartbroken for one of the characters in this book that I didn't know if I wanted to keep reading it. Like, it really, really made me sad at certain points. But it redeemed itself because I really did like the ending of it. And I thought that it was a really fun read. A lot of people love it. They put it all the time in like those book talk videos of top romance books to read. And I thought that I felt really warm and fuzzy at the end of it. And I found myself wanting to go back to it. Like, I may reread it, or maybe one of their other books. I haven't read any other books by Ashley Poston, but talking about it is making me want to reread it, or at least like read some highlights, read some favorite quotes from it, because it was such a fun book. And I really like fantasy and things that involve magic. And so this just kind of hit all the boxes for me. This goes into my final recommendation for a romance book to read is actually a romantasy book. If you're wanting to read not quite a rom-com, I recommend One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. This book goes so crazy. Both of the books, it's a duology, finished duology, so both of the books are out now. And this is about a girl named Elspeth, and the magic system of this land is all based around these cards, like a deck of cards. And each card in the deck gives someone power, a certain amount of power. There's only a limited amount of cards, so only like the elite people or people who have some kind of like political standing have access to these cards. And the more rare the card, the more powerful the ability that it gives you is. So the holder of the card gets the ability that is on the card, and they can be freely traded and given. So just because I have a card right now does not mean that I will have it later in the future, just based on the politics. Some cards are worth more than others because obviously the more rare ones have more powerful abilities. At the beginning of this book, you don't realize that it's going to be exactly a romantasy, but around the 1/3 halfway mark, the romance starts to kick. I mean, you kind of know at the beginning there's going to be like a hint of romance, but you never know for sure exactly where it's going. But it was just such a fun romantasy ride. And of course, it becomes more romantic as the book goes on. It's a slow burn. It's a YA book. So it's like Fade to Black or Closed Door. There's yearning. And we know how I feel about yearning. I'm down bad for yearning. And the main character, his name is Raven, and he's like a dark, brooding guy. You know, all of the books all of the book boyfriends that they describe in these fantasy books, and even a lot of the rom-com books, they're gonna be like tall, like 6'4" probably. They're all gonna have dark hair. They're all gonna have a mysterious, brooding air to them, and no one can quite get them except for the main character. Somehow she gets them so well. I recommend it to every single person. I put it almost every single month in my book club that I go to. Everyone gives recommendations, and we randomly draw for the next month's read. And I think for the last like 6 meetings that I've gone to, sans the one that I went to today, I have put down One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. It never gets picked. It never gets picked, but I tell everyone to always read it. I will say that this permanently altered my brain chemistry, and I was like fiending for the second book. After I finished the first one, I had to read it. I like went and like logged into my friend's Kindle Unlimited just so I could access her copy of Two Twisted Crowns, because I simply could not wait. I could not wait to read the second book, and I needed it so badly that I was willing to log out of my own Kindle and go on to someone else's. That should be telling enough. That should tell you exactly what you need to know about this book. I think that the world building and the magic system itself was very unique and playful, very playful and thoughtful in a way that I obviously would have never come up with, which I would have never came up with any of these book ideas because I'm not an author. Never will be, never could be. Anyways, that's One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. Love One Dark Window. I will actually be rereading this duology this year because I need it. I need it deeply in my life. It just hits so well, which is so interesting because if you know me as a reader, I do like a lot of spice. I like to read smutty books. I mean, I sprinkle in other books here and there, but I would say that mainly the books that I read are going to have some kind of spice in them. One Dark Window, it has yearning and longing and just a tiniest kiss of spice, but like I said, it's young adult, so nothing really can happen on page. It leaves enough to the imagination to lock you in. It does. Those are my 10, I hope. I didn't even count when I was giving those recommendations. Those are, I hope, 10 recommendations for Valentine's Day. And if you've read any of them, if you're planning to read any of them, please let me know. Leave a like and a comment. Subscribe if you haven't. And happy Valentine's Day, y'all. I hope you have a great week, day, night, whenever you're watching this. Thank you for watching. I love you. Goodbye.